another episode of A Drummer's Guide to. Today I've had a question from Steve Chafe, or Chafe, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, I'm really sorry. And he is asking about the click track. Specifically, he wants to know how I use it live with, at the moment, Kim Wilde and with Howard and the Thompson Twins. He wants to know how that sort of works. So I thought I'd just go a bit broader on the subject and tell you a little bit about my journey with the click track, because it has been a tumultuous one, let's face it. I think it is for a lot of drummers, and I'm really lucky in that I was very, for some reason, I generally have and have always had quite good timing, and I don't know why. I have a theory that it's because when my mum was pregnant, she used to do workout classes every week right up until I think it was like 2 weeks before I was born. So I like to think that that's why my timing is semi-decent, in saying that I can't dance for toffee, so I don't know. But anyway, I'm quite lucky in that respect, but that doesn't mean that I was a natural at playing with the click. And you know, you're a drummer, you literally have one job. Like, the baseline number one job you have is to keep time. So I could keep time, but if I had a click involved, we would fight. We would fight. It was like having this enemy that was kind of like, I felt like it was, you know, just pulling me away from the music, and it was just totally counterproductive to making a good sound, to playing a good gig, and I used to really struggle with it. And if you've watched my past video called Failure, when I went and did my first ever studio session, this is the very short version, the first thing that went wrong that I really noticed was how I was not locked in with the click. So that was my number one thing to concentrate on, to get better at. And luckily, I mean, it's fine now, and that's great, because I literally use the click every day. So whether it's recording at the studio, I'm 99.9% of the time recording to a click. Playing, like I say, when I'm playing with artists, especially 80s artists, because there's so much, we have a few things on track and stuff like that. So you have to play to a click so that it's all like in sync together. And generally speaking, it's only the drummer or drummers that have the click. So me and Jonathan Atkinson. And it just means that we're playing the song at the right speed. We all have a point of reference. Also, like, you're always going to have a certain set length within a certain, you know, parameter, because talking, you don't time the talking bits. But, you know, the tour manager knows, okay, this set is going to be 1 hour and 45 minutes, roughly, give or take a few minutes, because every song, like, okay, Kids in America, we know that song is 4.5 minutes. I don't actually know if it's 4.5 minutes, I have no idea. 4.5 minutes because we play at the same speed every night, and the structure is the same every night, and you can play around within those parameters. And I'm big into having boundaries and then playing within them, because I think it's a really nice challenge. I'm sort of going off on a tangent, as usual, but anyway. So I wanted to talk about how I developed my click work, because as I said, I had this traumatic experience doing a session where it all went wrong. But the first thing that I went to concentrate on was the click, because I knew that, well, initially, before I'd done this session, I thought I was good at playing to a click. I've always practiced to a click, but in this scenario, it very much showed up very quickly that I was not as, like, I was a bit inept. Basically, I was a little bit inept. So I went on this quest to start learning about the click. Okay, I remember reading somewhere that, you know, like, drummers felt like the click was their friend, and at that time, especially after that session, I was like, the click is not my friend, it is my enemy, it made me ruin the session, I've ruined my life. So yeah, I just thought, okay, I think that should be the first port of call. Let me try and make the click my friend. And I I had lessons with 2 people that really made me see it in a different way, and I've spoken about them both a couple of times before, I think, but I'll speak about them again. The first one is I went to have a lesson with a drummer called Andrew Small. Brilliant drummer from the UK, and I went to his studio, we had a lesson, and I was asking him about feel. In fact, I think that's when I mentioned him in my video about groove, and he spoke to me about the click. He was like, okay, how do you see the click? And I was like, how do you see, what do you mean, how do you see the click? He was like, well, you know, if it was a shape, if you could see it visually, what would it look like? And I was like, it would be like that. Like this horrible, cutting, nasty, aggressive, that's a click. And he was like, okay, I see it like this. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, okay, let's say that that's the actual click that you hear at the top. It's like ding, 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 ding. And I was like, huh. And that very, like, 30-second conversation, that 30-second example completely changed things, because all of a sudden I see round things as very fluid, as very warm, as very comforting. And I started seeing it like that. And I was like, okay. And whenever I would get frustrated with the click, I would just try and think of it like that. And it really helped. And I still sort of see it like that. And these days, as I think I said on my video, I see it more fluid than that. But the principle is still the same. It's not this linear, horrible, cutting thing that's going through everything and playing and going through everything that you're playing. And oh, it's not that at all. It's something to work with. And as I say, it's the parameter that you can work within, which is actually quite a nice thing. The second person that I saw that really changed a lot of the way that I thought about the click, again, an amazing drummer called Billy Ward. And again, I've spoken about him a couple of times. I'm going to speak about him again. I'll probably speak about him again after this because I think he's wonderful. He has this concept called big time. And if anyone wants to check it out, please do. He's a master, like, at talking about time and feel, and oh, it's brilliant. And what he would talk about, so you hear a click, let's say it's like ding, ding, see look, I'm doing the wrong movement again, ding, 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 ding. He would talk about, okay, that's the click, let's talk about big time. And I was like, okay, I don't know what you're talking about. And what he would talk about is the subdivisions. So you're not just hearing ding, 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 ding. You need to hear like the bits in between, like ding, 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 ding. It's Monday morning. I don't have a huge amount of energy. I've just had a big coffee, and hopefully that's helping. Yeah, and I was like, okay, that's quite interesting. And he would be like, obviously, you don't have to play all those notes when you're hearing them, but if you can get like rhythms in between the clicks and make that become more musical and more fluid and more rhythmic, then that's great. And then what you end up doing is you can be having like all the things in your head and whatever, but playing something incredibly simple, like ding, 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 gat, gat. But in your head, you've got that gat, something like that. Maybe not that exactly, but you get the idea. And it brings this feel instantly to what you're playing without you having to play it. And it might sound mad, it makes a difference. 100% makes a difference. So that was a big lesson. So seeing the click with all these sort of subdivisions with texture in between, because I see drums as colours and textures and all sorts of stuff like that. So if you can sort of add that element to it, it becomes very layered and I don't know, I really like it. So yeah, those two people, those two lessons massively changed how I thought about the click, which changed my approach, which changed my motivation to actually becoming friends with it. And then that's what I did. So I, again, as I've said many times before, I would play to the click, I would record myself, I would listen back for years and years. And I guess I still do that day to day. I'm recording in the studio pretty much every day. If I'm not on tour, I'm recording in the studio. And like I say, 99% of the stuff that I do in the studio is recorded to a backing track, but also a click. And although sometimes it's more, or a lot of the time, if in fact most of the time, it's more about locking in with the track, it's still beneficial to understand how to lock in with anything. And a great place to start, a consistent place to start, is with the click. And you can do it in the same way if you're going to practice to a song that also has been recorded to a click, because obviously there's some older songs that weren't, maybe like Motown stuff that, you know, may speed up. There's nothing wrong with that. It's what gives it its whole vibe. But if you're specifically working on timing and playing to a click or whatever, maybe you want to go a little more modern, something that you like, I don't know, something really obvious. Billie Jean, very obviously recorded to a click, nailed, and just, yeah, so you want to practice the music rather than a click, fine, do that. So yeah, I think that is how I basically did that. And I remember the first ever audition I went to, and it was playing to a click in the audition, and I can't tell you how terrified I was, because although I'd done all this work, as I'd found out in that horrible recording session, just because you do all this work, then it doesn't mean that it's going to work. Oh, I wanted to tell you about another thing that I would do, which I think I've also spoken about, but when I was playing in my covers bands at the time, which were definitely not playing to click at all, but what I would do is I would set up a click, and what I did was, so on the set list I would find like a tempo, not any old tempo of the song that we were playing at, because some we were playing a little faster or a little slower, whatever. Find the tempo, and I would have ears in, or one ear in, and I would have the click going. And I sort of said to the guys, look, would you mind if I play to a click and we can sort of like play to that? And they were like, yeah, they were so supportive, so accommodating. I'm like, yeah, cool. So it became, okay, I will count in songs, and we would play, and I'll be honest, especially at the beginning, man, I would start playing and it would all just go out the window, and all of a sudden I was playing a song with a click that was absolutely not relevant to anything that we were playing, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not good at this, like, this does not work. But what happened then is that I got slightly better, and sometimes it still was like awful or whatever, but the thing is, it was like what I would call a low risk situation. So if I went out with the click, nobody else would know, nobody in the world, it would just be me. So I would just battle with that internally and just go, rubbish, and you need to be better, Anyway, getting back to this story, the first time I went to an audition, it was for a girl called Naomi, who, her artist name was Firechild. She was lovely, so nice. Didn't get the gig, but went to do this audition, and honestly, I was terrified. I was really in a state of vulnerability, and especially after all this horrible recording session that I'd done, I basically failed completely. And I went to do this audition, and I was scared, and I just thought, okay, let's do this. And the guy, the MD, I wish I could remember who was in the room, because I don't remember apart from her. And the guy, in fact, actually, I think I do. Anyway, so yeah, and he said, the MD said, right, there's going to be 2 bars and we're in. Fine, okay. And I was like, okay, let's do this. Anyway, did the audition. I could play to the click! I was like, I don't care how this goes. I don't care if I get called. I played to a click. We stayed in with a click. It probably wasn't perfect, but I stayed in with a click. And that was just like, I win. It's working. I need to do more. I can do this. And that was a turning point. Massive turning point. And like I say, I didn't get the gig. Not at all. For whatever reason. I have no idea why. I can't remember anything. All I do remember is, for some reason, I was chatting to her over text afterwards, and she was so lovely. That's all I remember. But what I do remember is that. And from that point, I just built on my confidence, and I carried on recording myself, listening back. And then as I was getting gigs, they were gigs with click. I'm trying to think about the first gig I did with click. Well, I suppose it would have been the Hours. That was, in fact, before that, a girl called Manjari. Yeah, so that would have been, and this is what I'm saying, I think that the MD from that gig was the MD of Manjari. And then when I went to do Manjari, that's when I met Brian Ferry's manager. So that's why I'm just suddenly remembering. I always wondered where I'd met him, and I think it was from that. Anyway, yeah, so I built upon it then. And then, I wasn't perfect, no, but I was still working on it. And now, I mean, playing to click is completely second nature. I don't even think about it. To me, it's just part of the band, really. And I think if you can think about it as another band member, then it's a lot easier to lock in with. And I think the key to playing to a click, like the goal, I suppose, to playing with a click would be playing to it, obviously, staying in time, great. Another thing is being able to stay strong with it, not necessarily locked to it, because that can sometimes cause other problems, but a lot of the time, because the drummer is the only one that has a click, you might have band members who are like trying to push and pull you in different directions, and it's very difficult not to go with that sometimes, especially if you come from a background where you just go with everyone, and you know, and some gigs I don't play with a click, like not at all. Joe Burt, for instance, we wouldn't play to a click, definitely not. But it's made my internal time better as well, which is great. So you always know that you're going to have some sort of good timing and everyone can sit in the same sort of space. But as I say, if you're playing to a click and other band members are sort of like pushing and pulling you, you have to kind of, how would you say, manage it, I suppose, and sort of like go a little bit, but then maybe like, it's almost like, say a guitarist is rushing ahead, it's like you sort of go with them a bit and then you put your arm around them and then you bring them back with you. It's kind of like that. That's kind of how I see it, and it probably sounds mental, but that's kind of how I see it. And then you're all back together again. It's like you give there's a bit of elasticity within that click. The second sort of goal with playing to a click, I think, is, and probably the more difficult one, is to sound like you're not playing to a click. And that was something that took a lot of time to, I wouldn't say master, I wouldn't say I've mastered it. I don't think I've mastered anything. I think I've got a million trillion miles to go in many aspects of my playing. But yeah, I think that if you can sound like you're not playing to a click, that's probably the best thing. And you know, when you get people asking you, so are you playing to a click? Like, it doesn't sound like, it's like, great, that's what you want. That's definitely what you want, because you don't want to feel wooden and, you know, that, all those connotations of what playing to a click might be, like negative connotations. Like, you don't want that. You want it to sound natural. You want it to sound like music at the end of the day. So I think if you can make yourself sound like you're not, and again, the way that I developed that, recording myself, listening back, and not just playing to a click, but playing live, and I think it's just a lifelong journey, really. Yeah. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on it. I'm not sure that I even answered your question, Steve. But yes, I play with the click a lot, and I really like it. And then equally, it makes me really like not playing with the click. It's just variety. I think variety is a brilliant thing, and that's another thing that you can vary in your playing. And if you can have that skill, aside from anything, it will make your timing better. So win-win, win-win situation. I'm gonna go now and stop rambling on. But I hope you're having a lovely day. And I'll be back again with another subject soon. Alright. Oh, if you have any questions, like Steve did, then just go onto the website, adrummersguide2.com. There's literally just a bar that says, ask me a question. So ask me a question, and then I'll get it, and then, yeah, I'll answer it at some point. Anyway, I'll speak to you soon.